Welcome to Encourage Yourself in the Lord. This week in our Devos, we've been talking about how we can attune our minds and get rest in our souls, encouraging ourselves in God's presence and remembering who God is when we go through different things that cause us to forget. Or when we go through just a normal day and we get lost in the day-to-day things that we forget. I want to tell you something today that's the ultimate secret. And this is something that I think all of the apostles knew, all of the Old Testament heroes, the patriarchs, they knew. And it's about this idea of being insulated in the presence of God. And I want to call this, so that you remember this, get lost in God's character. Get lost in God's character. When I am up against something that is a little uncertain or I feel kind of shaky, it's so easy for me to think about my own character, right? Like I'm like, oh, I'm not good at this, or I'm bad at organization, or I'm struggling with this. And I start to kind of do an anti-resume. You know, in a resume, what you do is you kind of build yourself up. You're like, instead of saying that you were, I used to be a janitor at a Catholic school. I wasn't a janitor on my resume. No, I was the custodial engineer that was responsible for facilities management. So they saw engineer on that resume because I built that up. Well, really, when we're alone, what do? We do the opposite. We kind of break ourselves down and we say, well, I can't handle this. I'm a mess about this. Well, I want to give you something completely revolutionary to try. And it's not new to us. I want you, instead of focusing on your weakness in character, I want you just to get lost in God's character. Look at Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 23 and 24. Listen to how God describes himself. He says, "Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man boast in his wisdom. Let not the mighty man boast in his might. Let not the rich man boast in his riches. But let him who boasts boast in this, that he understands and knows me." Does that sound familiar? The Apostle Paul says that the only thing valuable in his life in Philippians is his knowledge of Christ. This is what he says here in Jeremiah in the same kind of vein. Jeremiah, he says here, let him boast in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the one who practices steadfast love, justice, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, declares the Lord. This is what you need to realize. Your strength doesn't come from who you are. Your strength comes from who you know. And if you know the Lord Jesus Christ, then you know a God who practices steadfast love, justice, and righteousness in the earth. When we struggle with knowing whether or not this world is going to straighten itself out, all we need to know is I know a God who is righteous. He is perfect. He is steadfast. He is loving. He is always the same. Therefore, I can find my joy and my strength in God's character and not in my circumstances or in my own frailty. So when you strengthen yourself in God's character, when you kind of bury yourself in knowing who He is and really understanding who He is, what happens is you will find that you are encouraging yourself in the Lord.